At the height of passion, my husband's private phone suddenly rang. On a mischievous impulse, I snatched it and answered first. "Gabriel?" A weak female voice came through the phone. My heart sank. Chapter 01. I was straddling Gabriel's waist, silently holding up his phone. He answered coldly. "What is it?" At the same time, his waist thrust deliberately deeper. I bit my lip hard, but still let out a muffled moan. The person on the other end of the line seemed to sense something and stayed silent for a long while. Growing impatient, he said sharply, "Speak. The task you assigned me is done. Should I put it in your office tomorrow?" "Yes." Gabriel frowned and warned. "Don't call me outside of work hours again, no matter how big the case is. Court doesn't open at night. I need to be with my wife." He hung up and tossed the phone aside, pulling me back to continue. After we were done, he went to shower first. I picked up Gabriel's phone and unlocked it skillfully. I found the number from just now, no name saved, and no previous call history. I copied the number into WeChat search. No such contact. I tried adding it. A black avatar popped up, with moments hidden from strangers. The sound of running water in the bathroom stopped. I returned the phone to its original screen and quietly put it back where it was. Gabriel came out wrapped in a towel. I smiled and asked casually, "Who was that just now? Why was someone calling you so late?" He frowned, a trace of disdain crossing his face. "A student my mentor took in last year. She forced her way into the firm last month saying she wanted some experience. She's dumb as hell, can't even read a contract properly. I don't know how she even got into grad school." I nodded and joked. "You don't tell me anything new about your firm anymore. Do you not love me anymore?" He didn't answer. He just pressed me back onto the bed, lowered his head and lightly bit my ear. "Looks like I didn't love you enough just now." "Huh?" I immediately begged. "Husband, I was wrong. I was wrong. No more. No more." I said, "I have a 7 a.m. flight tomorrow to Paris for a business trip." I pushed him away and dashed into the bathroom like my feet were greased. Warm water poured down from above, but my heart was icy cold. When Gabriel's firm was first established, he was constantly traveling, socializing, drinking, just to pull in cases. Back then, sometimes I only saw him once every few months, until later, when he won a case that was almost impossible to win. From that moment on, he became famous in one battle. After that, he no longer had to go looking for cases. Cases came to him endlessly. And from then on, he had one rule. No one was allowed to disturb him outside of work hours. Everyone in the firm knew this rule. And in turn, how important could the case in her hands be, that it required calling him late at night? Besides, it was too clean. Apart from tonight's call, there was no previous call history at all. I stood quietly under the shower, letting the water run over me. Chapter 02. 5 years of dating, 3 years of marriage. Even every milestone in Gabriel's life since he was 17 bore my mark. Over all these years together, it seemed we never ran out of things to talk about. We were each other's best friends, and the people who understood each other the most, precisely because we knew each other so well. Even the slightest emotional shift from him never escaped me, and in turn not knowing his rule and calling him in the middle of the night was not enough to make me suspicious. What made me suspicious was what he said afterward. I knew his graduate school mentor, and had even interacted with him quite a bit before. He was a man as pure and upright as a clear breeze and bright moon, and every student he accepted was personally chosen. There was absolutely no way someone like that would take in a student as foolish as Gabriel described. Yet the perfectly timed frown on his face and the fleeting trace of disdain revealed nothing but his dislike for that junior. What's more, for someone he disliked so much, Gabriel was personally guiding her and had even given her his private number. I didn't want to doubt him, but the seed of suspicion had already been planted. I was never someone who waited to die. Rather than waiting for that seed to take root and sprout, I chose to face the truth directly. Chapter 03. 5 days later, I finished my work in Paris at the fastest speed possible and flew back a day early. Of course, I didn't notify anyone. After landing, I told my assistant to go rest and took a taxi to the law firm alone. I went straight to the firm's floor, followed by an employee from the cafe downstairs who was delivering goods. I hadn't been there many times. The front desk had been replaced with someone new who didn't recognize me. so I was naturally stopped at the entrance. I had deliberately chosen a time when Gabriel would be in court, so there was no way I was calling him. I searched my contacts for a long time before finally finding his partner's number. Just as I was about to dial, a voice suddenly rang out. "Senior?" I looked up. It was a young, pretty girl. The moment our eyes met, she let out a soft exclamation. "Senior, it really is you?" The receptionist shot her a questioning look. She explained my identity while warmly coming over to me. "Senior, I'm Nicole, Gabriel's junior. Gabriel's in court right now. Since you're here, why didn't you tell him? He definitely would have arranged someone to pick you up." Gabriel and I went to the same university, so it made sense for her to call me senior. But she was the useless junior Gabriel had mentioned? I smiled. My business trip ended early, so I came by on the way. I wanted to surprise him. Didn't expect such bad timing. She sighed in agreement and, together with the receptionist, escorted me inside. During our conversation, I obtained 2 pieces of information from her. First, she really was Gabriel's junior from the same academic line, but she had already been at the firm for a year, had long since become full-time, and was not an intern at all. Second, 3 interns had indeed been recruited this year, but all of them were men. I calmly handed out desserts to the people in the firm, but my mood had already dropped to freezing point. Gabriel had lied to me, but if the one who called wasn't his junior, then who was it? Out of the corner of my eye, I swept over the few female lawyers still in the firm. Could it be one of them? I recalled that female voice from that night. My intuition told me it wasn't. The person who had called Gabriel was someone even more worth investigating. Chapter 04. I made the excuse that I was tired from the flight and wanted to rest in Gabriel's office while waiting for him to return. Minimalist decor, the usual black, white, and gray palette, just as cold and austere as the man himself. The only things out of place in this rigorous, chilly office were a framed photo of the 2 of us on the desk, and a potted succulent, pink, with thick, plump leaves layered tightly together like a blooming lotus. Thanks to my previous boss being a gardening enthusiast, I had a clear understanding of succulents. They were actually not as easy to care for as most people imagined, especially in S-City's hellish climate of high heat and humidity. Keeping them alive might not be difficult, but raising one this beautiful took a great deal of effort. But Gabriel was a classic plant killer. I had given him many potted plants before. Without exception, not a single one had survived more than a week in his hands. If I wanted to know who had raised this one, it was very simple. I lifted my hand. The succulent rolled off the desk. Clang! The loud noise drew the firm's employees over. Nicole was the first to rush in. "What happened? What happened? Senior, are you okay?" Several female lawyers followed behind her, chattering as they showed concern. I shook my head and pointed at the shattered succulent on the floor. "I'm fine. I accidentally knocked the succulent off the desk just now. As long as you're okay." Yes. It's good that you weren't hurt. I'll call the cleaner." They all spoke at once, comforting me. I swept my gaze across them one by one. None of their expressions looked unusual. Maybe they were just good at hiding it? We chatted a bit more. Still, no one showed anything out of the ordinary, until everyone returned to their posts and a woman in a cleaner's uniform came in. She was wearing a mask, her head lowered. Without a word, she picked up the broken pieces of the flower pot, swept up the soil, then knelt down and carefully wiped the stains on the floor. When she knelt and lowered her head to wipe, I saw a crescent-shaped purple birthmark on the back of her neck. A birthmark in that spot. I watched her working with a calm expression until she finished cleaning and silently picked up her tools to leave. Just as she reached the doorway, I suddenly spoke. "Diana?" She didn't stop walking, but I clearly caught the slight tremble of her hand. Chapter 05. Diana was a high school classmate of Gabriel and me. Calling her a classmate is really giving her too much credit. She should be considered an enemy. The darkest moments of both my life and Gabriel's were all thanks to her. Back in high school, Gabriel and I attended the same elite private school. We were both infamous there for being poor students. Equally poor, equally good at studying, equally isolated, equally bullied. And the instigator of all of it was Diana. The first person Diana targeted was Gabriel. All because, during a major exam, Gabriel sat in front of her and didn't let her copy his answers. She poured dirty water on his faded, pilling white shirt, deliberately hid his worn-out shoes, tore up his exam papers, framed him for stealing money, and even accused him of peeping at girls in the restroom. They banded together into a small clique and went to the principal's office to report him under their real names, demanding that the school expel him. At that time, I was the only person who stood up and said I believed him, so I also became one of Diana's bullying targets. Of course I knew what would happen if I spoke up for him, but I couldn't help empathizing with him. With similar family conditions, I knew exactly what he would end up doing if he were expelled. Later, everything they had done to Gabriel was imposed on me, but I was not Gabriel. When I was 15, after I got into the best high school, my father opposed it and wanted to marry me off to a fool. That was the first time I truly lost my mind. When that family came to my house, I took a kitchen knife and slashed my father 3 times. My would-be mother-in-law was scared half to death, and the fool wet his pants. From that moment on, I became infamous in one strike. Of course, the consequence was that I nearly ended up in juvenile detention. Later, my middle school homeroom teacher pulled strings everywhere, wrote explanations to the police, and brought out my grades. Only then did I avoid being sent to juvenile detention, even though my middle school teacher said she could sponsor my education and told me not to worry about tuition. I still chose to come to this elite school, simply because it waived tuition and paid bonuses for good grades. From then on, I understood one truth: the ruthless fear the reckless. The reckless fear those who don't care about their lives. I had a worthless life anyway. At worst, we'd die together. So when Diana threw my backpack into the toilet, I didn't hesitate to grab her by the hair and drag her up to the rooftop. The entire school, teachers and students, police, firefighters, reporters, everyone showed up. To this day, I still remember how Diana looked, crying and begging me to spare her. But no matter how she begged, I still jumped down with her. Unfortunately, there were inflatable safety cushions laid out below. We both survived just fine. The incident made trending headlines. Everything Diana had ever done was dug up by all-powerful netizens. Even her family was dragged into the public storm. They ran a high-end restaurant chain. Overnight, the internet launched a boycott of all their restaurants, and their stock price plunged again and again. After that, Diana dropped out of school, and the school, trying to salvage its image, began to clean up its environment, enforcing strict management, at least until I graduated. I never heard of any bullying again. I stared blankly at that slightly hunched figure. Was it her? Chapter 06. Perhaps someone at the firm had told Gabriel about my arrival. As soon as court ended, he rushed back. I was sitting on the sofa in his office, staring straight at the distant high-rises. Hearing the door open, I slowly turned my head. He took 2 or 3 steps toward me, squatted down, naturally took my hand, and gently kissed it. "Why did you suddenly come to the firm today?" "Because I missed you too much after being on a business trip for days." I raised a gentle smile. "What? Did I scare you by showing up suddenly?" Gabriel sat down beside me, wrapped an arm around me, and said indulgently, "What are you talking about? I'd be thrilled if anything. Your coming to see me is a surprise." I pushed him away and sat up straight, choosing my words carefully. "I think I just saw one of our old classmates at the firm." A perfectly timed look of confusion appeared on his face. "Who?" I paused, then softly said that name, Diana. He froze, then took my hand again. "You saw her?" I nodded. He didn't speak, only looked at me quietly. Golden afterglow streamed in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, bathed in the light. Gabriel's sharp features gleamed brilliantly. He lowered his head and squeezed my palm. Then he lifted his head and gazed deeply at me. I wanted to see if this method could cure my illness. Chapter 07. That's right. Although later the things Diana had done bullying classmates were dug up and she received her punishment. And even though after that the school never again had incidents of bullying, Gabriel still couldn't walk out of his past. He developed severe post-traumatic stress disorder. His grades plummeted, and the school began calling him in for talks. But he couldn't enter a normal learning state at all. The moment he sat in a classroom, his heart raced and sweat broke out all over his body. Immense pain surrounded him. At his lowest point, he climbed onto the school building rooftop one night. He sat on the edge of the rooftop for 3 hours. I couldn't stand it anymore and spoke up. If you're not planning to jump, then come down. It's pretty cold at night. If you catch a cold, you'll still have to buy medicine tomorrow. He turned his head, his face full of surprise. Lily? When did you come up? I stuffed my study materials into my backpack. I've been here the whole time. I slung the backpack over my shoulders and glanced at him. Although I don't know why you're thinking this way. You don't look like you truly want to die. So live well. The next day, he became my desk mate, and except for sleeping and going to the bathroom, during the day he was basically always in and out with me. I didn't understand it, and at one point even found him annoying. It wasn't until later, when we entered university, and after I finally understood my own feelings and got together with Gabriel, that I asked him whether he had been secretly in love with me back then. He analyzed his psychological state for me in full detail. I felt deeply sorry for him, and sincerely apologized for my former indifference. When things were serious, I asked him whether he wanted to see a doctor. Then he looked at me with eyes full of affection. You are my medicine. Although over the years Gabriel's illness seemed to have improved, I knew that every time I wasn't beside him late at night, he would always wake up in shock. I looked at him, worry in my eyes. Does she still affect you now? I don't know. He shook his head, his eyes filled with indescribable complexity. When I brought her in, my original intention was to torment her or make things difficult for her. But after she really came in, I thought, if I did that, how would I be any different from who she used to be? I hugged him, heart aching. It's not your fault. You're just too kind. If it really doesn't work, then fire her. He buried his head in the side of my neck, his voice muffled. I'm not kind. I want her to watch the people she once bullied become people she can never reach, and let her suffer inside. He made me laugh. He laughed softly too. Wife, let's stop talking about her. A new Japanese restaurant just opened in the mall downstairs. Should I book a table? Chapter 08. Because of Diana's sudden appearance, I temporarily forgot about the phone call. Until a week later, I returned to my alma mater to give a speech as an outstanding graduate. After the speech, I was chatting with my former counselor in the lounge. Suddenly, the assistant waiting outside said someone was looking for me, saying she was my junior. I told the assistant to bring her in, and it turned out to be Gabriel's junior, Nicole. Nicole followed behind the assistant into the room. The moment she saw me, her brows and eyes lit up with a smile. Senior, I happened to come back to the school today and unexpectedly found out you were giving a speech, so I rushed over to listen. I laughed lightly. Then thank you for coming. She waved her hands again and again. No, you don't need my support at all. You're so outstanding, there weren't even enough seats for the people who came to hear your speech. I just really admire you. I smiled back. You don't need to admire me. You're just still young. She lowered her eyes and smiled shyly. The next second, as if suddenly remembering something, she placed what she was carrying onto the table in front of me. My gaze fell on the desserts she had brought, and confusion showed in my eyes. This is? She paused slightly, a hint of awkwardness appearing on her face. Last time, after court, I passed by a cake shop with my senior brother. He went in and bought a strawberry cake, saying it was for you. So I looked at her quietly. Perhaps the atmosphere was too subtle. Nicole asked carefully. The strawberry millefeuille from the shop at the school gate is very famous. You don't like it? Thank you. I showed a perfectly measured smile. I like it very much. Sorry to trouble you. Nicole's expression instantly relaxed. We chatted a little more. She offered to add my contact information, then stood up and took her leave. But the moment she went out, my assistant threw the cake into the nearby trash can. Lily, look at kids these days, trying to flatter even you. What a pity. She shook her head. You hate strawberry-flavored things the most. As a fruit, I like strawberries, but anything strawberry-flavored, I hate. I didn't hear a single word of my assistant's muttering. I lowered my eyes and pondered one thing. Since I don't eat strawberry-flavored things, then who was the strawberry cake Nicole mentioned Gabriel buying for? Of course, what Nicole said might not be true. Perhaps Gabriel never bought it at all. At the same time, I remembered last week when I had gone to the firm unannounced. I had brought many flavors of desserts. The one Nicole took was the only strawberry cake among them. Also, I recognized that the charm on Nicole's bag was exactly the same as the one I had given Gabriel. I remembered it was a piece of merchandise given by the organizer at an event I once attended. Gabriel had told me he lost it. A late-night call from his junior. Nicole and Gabriel. Everything lined up. But what did Nicole coming to look for me mean? A provocation? Or did she want to take my place? I took a deep breath and instructed the assistant driving in the front seat. Have someone look into Nicole. Chapter 09. The people my assistant hired worked quickly. By the next morning, I had already received all of Nicole's information. The file was rich and complete, covering all of her experiences since she entered university. After reading it, my emotions were hard to describe. I sat there blankly for a long while, then picked up my phone and pulled up the contact number I had just saved yesterday. Before I could press call, the other side called first. When the call connected, Nicole gave a light laugh. Senior, shall we talk? Time and place. Half an hour later, I arrived at the cafe downstairs from the law firm. But after waiting there for half an hour, Nicole still hadn't appeared. When I called back, no one answered. I checked the time and stood up to leave. After coming out of the elevator and turning past a dim corner, I suddenly caught sight of Gabriel's car. I remembered that Gabriel had said this morning he was going to the detention center outside the city this afternoon. Back so soon? I took out my phone and called him. After a few beeps, he finally picked up. Wife, what's up? I snorted lightly. What? I can't look for you if there's nothing wrong. My great lawyer? He laughed softly. You can. What orders does my queen have? I laughed too. Nothing special. Just wanted to ask when you're coming back. I'm not working overtime today. Come pick me up later. Let's go grocery shopping and cook at home. All right. I'll. MMPH. He suddenly let out a muffled groan. My palm unconsciously tightened. Husband. What's wrong? He paused, then replied lightly. It's nothing. Wife. I accidentally hit the corner of the desk while getting some files. Wait for me at home like a good girl. The call ended. I stared at the gently rocking car, lost in thought. If Gabriel had gone to the detention center, then who was in his car right now? My question was soon answered. The rear window slowly rolled down, revealing Gabriel's handsome profile. Gabriel was in the car. Then where was Nicole? I stared straight in that direction, a feeling I couldn't describe well rising in my heart. After all, when Nicole asked to meet me, I had already prepared myself. I just hadn't expected that they could even. Disgusting. Chapter 10. I quickly calmed myself, took out my phone, and turned on the camera, aiming it at the car. After a while, Gabriel got out, looking perfectly neat and composed. I adjusted the zoom, trying to capture clear evidence. The first thing to extend from the car door was a woman's leg, fair, slender, and marked with many bluish bruises. She bent over and crawled out of the car, her long hair messy, falling over the side of her face. I suddenly felt that something was wrong. The next second, she lifted her head, and that unfamiliar yet familiar face was magnified on my phone screen. Clang! I failed to hold onto my phone. It fell to the ground, making a loud sound. Who's there? Gabriel turned and walked a few steps in my direction. Who's there? It's me. Diana followed him and grabbed his sleeve. I accidentally kicked the tire just now. Gabriel spun around sharply and pulled his hand away in disgust. Don't touch me with your filthy hands. Diana showed not the slightest grievance at being despised. Instead, her eyes shone with excitement. All right, I won't touch you. Then next time, bind my hands like you did the first time. She clasped her hands together, looking expectant as she stepped closer. Little by little, there was a smile in Gabriel's eyes. But in the next second, veins bulged on his forehead and his gaze turned vicious. He raised his hand, grabbed her by the throat, and slammed her hard against the car. I warned you, without my permission. Don't come near me. Only when Diana's face had turned purple did Gabriel loosen his grip and stride away. Watching Gabriel's back, she touched the red marks on her neck. What a nasty habit. Don't you know how to cherish a woman at all? Chapter 11. I stood frozen, leaning against the pillar where I was hiding. The scene just now replayed in my mind frame by frame, like static from a broken television. Gabriel. Diana. Gabriel. Diana. I murmured those two names softly. Heh, curing his illness. So this was how he cured it. A scalding surge churned in my stomach, rolling up my throat. I braced myself hard on my knees. My knuckles turned white, my nails almost digging into my flesh. The stray hair on my forehead stuck to my skin, damp with cold sweat, trembling with each violent retch. Just as it felt like my insides were about to be emptied, a vague patch of white suddenly appeared in the corner of my vision. It was a hand holding a tissue. Wipe it. The corners of Diana's lips curved upward as she looked at me with pity. Pity? She was pitying me? In an instant, I understood she wanted to see me fall apart, but I refused to give her that. I took the tissue, wiped the acid from the corner of my mouth expressionlessly. Shall we go somewhere else to talk? Chapter 12. Under Diana's directions. The car drove through the bustling city center toward a remote urban village, twisting and turning through narrow alleys before finally stopping in front of a small building. The walls of the building were mottled and dilapidated. As I walked into the stairwell, my feet stepped on sticky steps. The broken motion sensor light flickered on and off. A fat old rat calmly crawled past my feet, scurrying along the wall and disappearing from my sight. I walked up slowly, one step at a time. Diana, walking ahead, grew impatient, leaning against the wall. She said, "Hurry up." Following her to the top floor, she opened the door and gestured for me to enter. I swept my eyes over the place without courtesy. Run down, cramped, dim, just like her. What? After leaving the slums for a few years, you're not used to it anymore? I spoke coldly, following Gabriel, and he still lets you live in a place like this? Her pupils contracted slightly. Then she quickly regained her composure. Yes, of course it can't compare to your big apartment downtown, but I'm already very satisfied. After all, she dragged over a stool and sat down. This was bought by Gabriel for me for 900,000. I crossed my arms and looked at her quietly, saying nothing. Oh, why aren't you talking anymore? She covered her mouth, her expression exaggerated. Look at my head. I even forgot that some of that 900,000 is your money too. Sorry about that. But don't worry, I'll pay you back. This area is about to be demolished. Once I get the compensation, I'll return every cent. I glanced at her and smiled. No need. Come brag in front of me after you get the demolition money. And besides, you didn't bring me here just to show me where you live, did you? I looked around once more, up and down, left and right, then nodded. It suits your temperament. Shut up. She was so angry her face twisted. Lily, why did I end up like this? The real culprit isn't. It's yourself. I cut her off loudly. You deserve it. Someone like you deserves to live forever in a place like this that never sees the light, rotting. Stinking. Heh. She pulled the corners of her mouth into a false smile. Your husband is already with me. So what are you still so confident about? She unbuttoned her shirt, one button at a time, below her collarbones. Her skin was covered with bluish bruises. See? Everything on me was left by your husband loving me. Thinking of all those nights when Gabriel confided his pain to me, I asked subconsciously. You mean, he loves you? She looked at me with contempt. You don't understand. The deeper the hatred, the deeper the love. Chapter 13. To prove it to me, Diana turned around, went into the bedroom, and came back with a stack of photos. She held them high, like championship medals. This time, and this time too, see? She stared straight into my eyes and said softly with a smile. Every single one of these photos was taken by him. After every time, he kept one as a souvenir. Looking at these photos, you have no idea how excited he was. A look of reminiscence appeared in her eyes. Our first time was when you had just taken office as general manager. You went on a business trip to Japan. He stayed at the law firm and didn't go back. Back then, I had nowhere to live, so I secretly stayed at the firm. And then it just happened. She looked at me leisurely. Gabriel, he didn't drink. He wasn't unwell. And he wasn't. I knew what she wanted to say. Everything happened while Gabriel was completely conscious. He even took the lead. There was no expression on my face, if anything. I was calmer than usual. Only the nails of my hands hanging by my sides dug deeply into my palms. The pain reminded me, making me even calmer. I looked at her steadily, with pity in my eyes. Selling your dignity, even your body, to please the person you once despised the most, this is how you take revenge on me? My words completely enraged Diana. Her face twisted as she screamed hoarsely. Lily, what do you know? You have everything. Of course you don't care about a man, but I have nothing now. This is all because of you. You owe me. Then her voice suddenly lowered. I don't want you to repay what you owe me anymore. Just give Gabriel to me, okay? You're the big CEO now. What kind of man can't you find? But he is my everything now. I'm begging you. Don't fight me for Gabriel, okay? He has already betrayed you. He's dirty. Have some mercy and divorce him. Give him to me, okay? I laughed at the right moment. If I told him to break it off with you, what do you think he would choose? She jerked her head up. I stepped toward her, one step at a time, my lips parting slightly. When I was 17, I could already leave you with nothing. Now, before I could finish, Diana moved, her expression vicious. She grabbed a fruit knife from the table and rushed at me. Bitch, go die. A flash of silver light passed before my eyes. I was violently shoved aside. Gabriel stood where I had just been, a fruit knife stabbed into his abdomen. He looked at me, concern in his eyes. Wife, are you hurt? Then his body collapsed backward uncontrollably. Blood flowed along the handle of the knife and spread across the floor. Diana trembled as she screamed. I laid Gabriel flat, then turned my head and shouted downstairs. Nicole, are you coming out now, or waiting until the police arrive before you come out? Chapter 14. Gabriel was taken into the emergency room. Nicole, Diana, and I were all brought to the police station. I presented the full recording of my conversation with Diana, together with all the evidence from the scene pointing to Diana. We were allowed to leave after finishing our statements. I stood at the entrance of the police station, looking out at the forest of high-rise buildings and the brilliant lights. But there was no longer a single light that belonged to me. At this moment, I should have been at home, having dinner and chatting with that person, then falling asleep in each other's arms. But now, there was no going back. I stood there blankly, tears still flowing uncontrollably. Nicole stood beside me. She didn't speak, only gently handed me a pack of tissues. I didn't take them. Instead, I turned to look at her and asked, why? From her attentive attitude, to her deliberate closeness, to the carefully timed meeting, step by step, she had even used herself as bait to guide me toward discovering the real truth. Nicole's eyes darted away. But even if she didn't say it, I already knew. She liked Gabriel. Back in university, she had publicly posted many times on the campus forum, saying Gabriel was someone she admired. After that, she followed his path, took the postgraduate entrance exams, and successfully got into the same professor's group, becoming his junior. Even her chance to intern at Gabriel's firm was something she had actively asked the professor to recommend. I didn't know what Nicole was really thinking, jealousy, unwillingness, or something else. In the end, it was she who reminded me. Otherwise, no matter what, I would never have imagined Gabriel would be with. I looked at her steadily, sincerely. Thank you. Discovering that I had loved the wrong person was painful, of course, but it was still better than finding out years later that the person lying beside me had betrayed me long ago. I was still young. I still had a chance to start over. Chapter 15. I gave Nicole one last look, then turned and walked away. I didn't expect her to chase after me. She followed me step by step. I turned back, frowning tightly. Senior, she hesitated. Why are you following me? She asked cautiously. Are you okay? I rubbed my temples, suppressing the irritability rising inside me. The hospital sent a message half an hour ago. Gabriel's surgery was successful and he's out of danger. If you go now, you might catch him just as he wakes up. Huh? She looked stunned. I didn't have the mood to go around in circles with her. Don't you like Gabriel? Don't you want to be with him? Go. He needs someone to take care of him right now. Like him? Me? Nicole raised her voice unconsciously. Wait. She pinched the bridge of her nose. Senior. Although I don't know how you concluded that I like him, I still want to explain. I might once have admired him, even looked up to him, but that was entirely because of you. Because, me? She nodded and opened her mouth as if to say something, but quickly closed it again. After a long while, she finally spoke again. I once had an older sister. She looked at me, sadness in her eyes. I know you definitely didn't know her. She was a year above you and Gabriel, and she was also a victim of Diana's bullying. I froze. We looked at each other, both of us silent. A long time passed, so long it felt like a century, before I heard myself ask softly and slowly, "Your sister, is she doing well?" She lifted her head to look at the sky, smiling through tears. She, up there. No one should be able to bully her anymore. Chapter 16. Gabriel woke up. The first thing he did after waking was ask to see me. I didn't respond. I simply had a courier deliver the drafted divorce agreement. The delivery guy later called to tell me that he delivered the documents, but Gabriel tore them up. The delivery fee, of course, was non-refundable. I laughed and told him it was fine, then gave him a 5-star review and an extra tip. Gabriel tried to call me, only to find that I had already blocked him on all social platforms and contact methods. He borrowed other people's phones to contact me, but whenever I picked up and realized it was him, my first reaction was to hang up and block the number. His injury was in the abdomen. After just coming out of surgery, even sitting upright would strain the wound. He could only lie in bed. I thought that meant he wouldn't be able to come harass me anymore. But late at night, I received a call from the hospital. They said Gabriel had pulled out all the equipment attached to him and even removed the unfinished foredrip, declaring that if I didn't go see him, he would rather wait for death. I let out a cold laugh. Then let him die. If he dies, I'll come collect the body. After that, I indeed stopped receiving his harassing calls. But every day, the divorce agreements I had couriers delivered to him turned into piles of shredded paper. I thought Gabriel would have to stay in the hospital for at least 10 days or half a month. I didn't expect that in just 1 week. I would see him in a wheelchair at my doorstep. He had lost a lot of weight. His old suits hung loosely on him, making him look gaunt and withered. When he saw me, starlight suddenly lit up in his eyes. "Wife." I walked past him and unlocked the door. He pushed his wheelchair and followed me inside. Listen to my explanation. Click. I turned on all the lights in the house. Every wall in the living room was covered with enlarged photographs. The moment he saw them, his face turned deathly pale. "Don't look! Don't look!" He wheeled himself frantically, trying to tear the photos off the walls. But the wheelchair was too fast. When he turned, it crashed into the coffee table beside the sofa. He and the wheelchair fell to the ground together. I stood there coldly. He trembled as he tried to push himself up, but the next second he fell heavily again. He looked up at me, begging, "Please, please, don't." I took the agreement out of my bag and flung it at his face. He threw it away, tears streaming down. "Lily, after all these years together, I love you so much. How could you be so cruel?" Chapter 17. Am I ruthless? He made me laugh. Yes, I am ruthless. Not like you, who can still roll in the sheets with an enemy. Hearing that, he seemed not to know how to react. Even his breathing seemed to stop. After a long while, he finally let out a deep breath. With his head lowered, as if talking to himself, he said, "When I was 17, being framed, beaten by a group, humiliated, I could endure all of that. But when the school wanted to expel me, I was really scared. I desperately explained, desperately cried for help. But not a single person stood up for me. Only you." He raised his head and stared at me blankly. "Because you helped me. They even bullied you together with me. I thought you would be like me. But you were so brave, so fearless. You exposed what Diana and the others had done to the public." I cut him off impatiently. "Why are you saying all this?" Gabriel paused. His eyes were filled with deep regret. Later, when I met her again, she was servile, even kneeling before me to beg. That was when I realized that the source of my countless nights of fear was actually that week. I couldn't control it. I really couldn't control it. I wanted to give all the harm I once suffered back to her. When I saw her crouching at my feet, begging me, I truly felt pleasure. I really couldn't control it. I sneered. "And then you slept together?" He was left speechless. My chest tightened, and tears surged out of my eyes against my will. Gabriel, let's end it here. Leave some dignity for both of us. He shook his head desperately. No, no. I love you. I really love you. You are the light that illuminated me. Without you, I would rather die. I didn't look at him. I took one last glance around this home we had once carefully arranged. I've already asked an agent to list the house before it's sold. You can still live here. After saying that, I turned around and left decisively. Naturally, I didn't see Gabriel behind me, the light in his eyes fading inch by inch. Chapter 18. The next day, the police called. Gabriel had jumped off a building, dragging his broken body. He had climbed to the rooftop and leapt down. The police asked me to go see him one last time. I thought it was another one of his tricks, but I didn't expect it to be real. I rushed to the police station. The police handed me a letter, saying it had been found on Gabriel. I didn't read it. I threw it in and had it cremated with him. Those who have already passed, let them pass. I watched the flames burning inside the crematorium furnace. Softly, I said, "Goodbye, Gabriel. I loved you. I'm going to welcome a better tomorrow that belongs to me."